Got Tim Gross, who's Mr. Para 10. Yeah.
Hello everybody, hope you're doing okay. Welcome to Wimbledon in the week before Wimbledon, if that makes any sense. This is obviously going to be a car park where I normally park for the track. It's actually been closed off where they're building a car park. Anyway, I haven't come to play tennis, I've come to run a track mile tonight. I'm in the second race with a seeding of 5:36, which is the time I did last year. I think I'm up against a load of 11-year-olds and fellow M55s. So I think it might be a cautious start as we let the kids go away and see if I can pick up a few later. So I've been quite looking forward to this one because it's the shortest race I've done since last September. So I'm not really in mile shape though, but it's a chance to actually just race a race for once. Because the last two track races I've done, I thought I'd get a nice race, but it turned out to be sort of quite lonely. So hopefully this will be a bit more competitive and I can get stuck in. I think there's a pacemaker as well, so that should be good fun. So I thought I'd do a voiceover proceedings. Thanks so much for Mark Hookway for the footage. So here we go. I'll get a bit of a slow start, a bit tentative start actually. I was expecting the pace to be somewhat slower than it was. And Victor Nugatar, who's actually a 150 800 metre runner, already run 154 this year, he's the pacemaker. And you can see he was meant to be running there. He's in the green shirt there coming round. He was meant to be running about 2:43, they said, on the line. And as it turned out, he was really struggling to get to the front. So almost in a way, you kind of felt that the pacemaker was a bit of a waste of time. So I sort of took up a position there sort of a bit tentatively, thinking that I would be able to sort of latch onto them later on, but already the leaders have sort of got away. One guy's actually following the pacemaker. I think almost he was the actual one doing the pace setting, and Victor had to really struggle to get to the front. And there's about another group of about 6, I think, plus the pacemaker that got away. So I'm basically in that second group now with a load of little kids in front of me. I say little kids, they're probably under 11s, under 13s. But yeah, I'm in good company. And I felt like I wanted to sort of start off fairly steadily. I was thinking, well, 5:36 last year, that's basically about an 84-85 pace, isn't it? And as it turned out, I think my 400 metre split was about 80, so I went a lot quicker than I thought I was going to go. So you can see that through the bell here, plus the extra 9 metres, which takes about 2 minutes, about 74 for the leaders, and I came through, I think, about 80 at the 400, and then a couple of seconds more. So already, so I'm effectively leading that second pack. I've now just got one female athlete in front of me there. So I've now got a decision to make. Do I sort of like ease off a bit? And I thought, well, I looked up ahead and I thought there was very little chance now of catching that lead group, which I was a bit annoyed about actually, because I think my racing instinct would have perhaps to have gone with that leading pack. But as you can see, I think that pace would have been just a bit too much for me at the moment. And there the pacemaker, you see, it almost seems to be doing a sort of more of a solo time trial. He actually seemed to be leading them out. There's a nice little group there. You can have thought if I was in that group, then it would have been good, but I think it really would have been a bit too much, and I think I'd have got to 800 and really suffered a big lactate dropout. So just as well that I had actually held it back a bit. So it did actually feel the second lap, but I was slightly slowing, and I think sometimes in the past I've been a bit guilty of sort of more clock watching than racing the other people. So this time I was sort of more concerned about just having a good race. And having said that, when I sort of found myself sort of thinking, oh, I'm now leading this sort of like B race, miles behind the leaders. So there's Victor. I think he goes on a bit more. He's looking quite casual there. Well, I looked him up and he hasn't raced a race more than a park run, so this is probably quite a good session for me. So here, I'm not looking too bad, but I'm in control now, leading that group, and actually that will stay that position for the rest of the race. I did actually catch one guy later on, but yeah, now it was a case of like getting stuck in. I was one of 4 M55s in this race. There's 2 at the back there. So good to at least in the end of the day win the N55 mini battle. And there's a bit of difficulty for Mark here because it was so far apart. Some of the other races were much tighter, so it was a bit odd with the seedings in this one. Maybe some athletes are just coming out and running a lot faster than they have done before. The race was actually won by Sebastian Hudsmith from Hercules Wimbledon. In fact, the first 4 athletes were from the host club, Hercules Wimbledon. So you can just about see me there, hovering in the background. Now, sort of looking at a sort of completely different race to these leading people. But when you look at these people, you think, oh, in the days gone by, my PB for the mile is 4:16.8. When I looked up the PBs on Power of 10, I'm almost a minute quicker than anybody else in the field, which is a bit sort of a humble brag, but it does make you sort of wonder why you bother to do these races still when you're so much slower than you used to be. But at least I'm still competitive, and I'm nearer the front than the back. or sort of, coming. I'm currently in 7th, but I will eventually catch that guy in front of me with the white vest, James Rafferty from Thames Hare and Hounds, who perhaps did what I said I might have done. And there we go. Looks like I'm about to go past him. So now on the last lap, at least I wouldn't have lapped myself because I got through the bell quicker than 4:16. So not yet to the case that I really would have lapped myself. But now the leader here, Sebastian Hunterworth, is well away. Good battle for 2nd to 5th here. Little lad there, Alfie Bryan from Herne Hill, mixing it with the other guys. In 2nd place was Michael Tanner, and 3rd was Michael Banks, with 4th place being Spellman. You can see that the leaders now. It doesn't look like he's actually flying. In fact, he looks like he's actually wearing trainers. So, yeah, not exactly got. I've got the Dragonfly spikes on the moment, so all the help I can get. Nice sort of bright green pair. I had a really good last lap actually. I mean, I think the first lap was about 80, then it was 84, 82. The leader finishing well into lane 3. Not quite sure what he's doing that for. We're near the exit. So 2nd place Michael Tanner, 3rd was Michael Banks. 4th Kyle Spellman, there's Alfie Bryan, and it's quite a little gap to me, but a really good sprint finish. And my 1500 metre split was 5:07.42, which on average pace is only 5:06. So there we are, 5:28.4 was my time. Looks like I finally tried. Although in hindsight, you think when you finish well, do you think you could have done any better? So here's all the people coming in. I think the last one was at Ted Giles, 5:52.8. There's a fellow M55 Darko Kalina from Sutton Runners, number 30. So let's have a look at some metrics. First of all, let's have a look at the map where we are. There's the track, and there's Wimbledon number 1 court and Wimbledon Centre Court. So you can see how near that actually is, with only oddly enough a golf course in the way. So I was using the track mode on the Garmin 955, and you can see that the actual track is really good, really tight, already in lane 1 there, and the distance came up spot on at just over 1,600 metres. There we are, 1,620. I might have stopped the watch slightly late, and my official time was 5:28.4, and I self-timed it at 5:28.0, so that's pretty good. The elevation, as you imagine, the flat track, so perfectly straight, so that's good. There's my heart rate as used with a HRM Pro Plus, so like a good sort of drift upwards there, average of 143, and looks like it got to about 153 at the end. So that's quite high for me actually. The maximum I've put on my watch recently is 155. Stride length I averaged 159 with a big kick at the end there. Coming down the home straight, got it up to just over 170. So that was not too bad. Cadence I averaged 187. So that's quite good. I mean, I think in the past I've been perhaps guilty of having a really sort of short staccato stride. When I did a 400 metre race a couple of years ago, I was really sort of feel like I was all moving so quickly that I wasn't really striding out too well. But yeah, so but obviously this pace is a lot slower than that. But yeah, at the end there, I think I was going up into the 190s. I was really going for it. I think in hindsight, you wonder if I could have sort of started off a bit quicker. But I think with these track races, you got to get used to them and know where your limits are. And such a fine line, because it's easy enough in hindsight to say I should have gone faster, but then I wouldn't have been able to finish as well. So these things come and go. Vertical oscillation. I never quite really read too much into that one. I think ground contact time is perhaps more interesting, although it does really mean that the faster you go, the less time you're on contact with the ground. So 175 average there, and the vertical oscillation of 8.9. Power, that's coming from Garmin. I've kind of given up with stride power really. Well, doing these flat track races, and not much point is there. Stopwatch is working just as well. Coming down to respiration rate, not quite sure really that tells me a great deal. I haven't quite understood that metric really. But the stamina one's interesting. Normally that doesn't work so well, but this is almost perfect there. I started off with 100% stamina, and by the end of the race I was completely spent. So that kind of shows that I did as best as I could, didn't it, based on those metrics. If we look at the laps, had 400 metre auto laps on, obviously the race being 1609.344 metres. The 400 metre laps needed this little bit extra on the end. So you start obviously 9 and a bit metres back from the start line. So the first 400 metres, just under 80 seconds. then an 84.6, which was my slowest. So that was quite good actually to have my slowest lap as my second lap. That means that then I thought, oh, I get a bit of a skates on, improved slightly, and then I had a really strong finish, 78 exactly, and then just a quick run in for the extra distance. So yeah, that was good. The left-right balance there was fairly balanced, just a very slight lean to the left. So yeah, pleased with that. No real signs of any sort of injuries at the moment, touch wood. And actually my heart rate maximum there got to 154. It's interesting, actually dipped slightly on the very last bit. Maybe I'd already crossed the line that by then anyway. It's quite a warm day, but not as warm as it has been. 23.9 degrees. There wasn't much wind about. It's just slightly headwind down the back straight, but I can't say that it really affected me. I don't think it could be much more than about 5 miles an hour. So conditions probably about as best as you're going to get for a mile race. Maybe just a bit too sort of hot and humid, but certainly nothing like it was at the weekend on Sunday. If you raced on Sunday morning, I was playing golf Sunday morning, went for a run later, and that was really quite hot still at about 7 o'clock. So yeah, felt sorry for the people who were racing on Sunday morning. That must have been tough work. Just checking what we can see on Strava, just confirming the wind speed. It got it at 8.5 miles an hour. And the temperature it has at 25. It didn't feel that warm actually, but maybe it was. Maybe I'm just getting used to this warm weather now. Didn't get that dry instant throat that I got in the 5,000. So look at my peak pace. My fastest 400 there was right at the end, so that's good. And my fastest 200, actually my fastest 200, this was at the start. Was about the fastest 300. Oh, that was at the end. So that's interesting. So it felt like I must have got off quite quickly, even though it felt like I was sort of really holding back. Fastest K, that was actually sort of the back end of it, although it was the exact same speed as the mile, so kind of don't read too much into that. Got my third fastest times on some of the splits here. I've done an 800 metre race at Wimbledon before, so that's probably when I did my best time there. When was that? My results. Oh yeah, I did an 800 there, so that was easily my best 2016. The next best was... So it's interesting compared to what I did 2 years ago. I did 5:25.39, also time I was working that time, and 1500 split of 5:2. So this year I was only... literally only 3 seconds slower over the mile, but the 1500 metre split was 5 seconds quicker. So I must have really, really struggled down the home straight 2 years ago. So I'm quite pleased with that in terms of that I actually finished really, really strong down the home straight with actually no one to chase. So you kind of think in a track race, you need to have people to actually chase. So yeah, that's a very interesting stat actually. That's quite promising. A lot different temperature last time. I seem to remember it actually rained upon us, although we didn't have any winds. So 16 degrees compared to 25. So yeah, global warming and that is coming along. Still wearing the Dragonflies, different pair of Dragonflies. The third pair I've got in action. I've actually got 4 pairs, so I'm kind of using one a season, but I could go back to this white pair. I've only used them for 26 miles. Maybe I'll have to use them for cross-country. But looking to get the cross-country version of the Dragonfly when my size drops. And I also got the Rocket X2s come in. Did a very encouraging first run in them tonight. So yeah, look to see a bit of content on them. But yeah, so it does sort of suggest that I might be in a shot with the sub-5 1500. I've got an 800 metre race that I've had a late entry into next week, so I'll look forward to that, see if I can sort of continue the progress. I think all this short stuff is good for the... When you go back to the long stuff, it just feels that the tempo is just a bit easier. I mean, obviously you've still got to do the endurance training and the long 2.5, 3 hour runs, but you just feel that your sort of like marathon pace now does feel slightly more comfortable. The effort then is always to keep it going. I mean, the marathon pace at the moment is going to be obviously 6:50 compared to 5:30, so there's a massive difference, isn't it? So if you get used to running a few 5:30 miles or even 5:28s that I did, then so much the better. So we just close out with my final thoughts of the track and a little chat with Mark Hookaway, who does great work going around to all these track meets and filming all the races, and he puts up on his YouTube channel, Mark Hookaway. So go and please check that out if you haven't already. You can view all the races. They had the A race was actually won in it was about 4:06, I think. It was a good attempt at a 4-minute mile. They were on pace for about 2 laps, and then obviously the pacemaker sort of dropped out with 600 to go, and it was quite a lonely furrow for the leader. But yeah, impressive to watch. I think it was about 3:49 1500 metre split as well. So yeah, I mean, my best was 3:55. And it's funny, was I was talking to Matt De Freitas at the end, and he was a sub 4 miler, and we were sort of like saying, "Oh, where would I have finished? I wouldn't have just won the B race with my best time ever, and I wouldn't have been last in the A race." So that was kind of comforting. Obviously now I'm in the first race and a good minute and more slower, so I've come back down to earth for the bump. But it's still keen, and that was my best times there for 2 years, and actually this mile 2 years ago was my best since 2016. So yeah, obviously it's a good race to do.
Oh, quick word with the man behind the camera, Mark. Quick way. You can do all the races?
Yeah, definitely.
I might have to nick your footage then for my video.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Can you do that? You got the technology to do that?
Oh, I just download it from YouTube, or do a screen share or a screen grab or something. Yeah, that's what I normally do.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Only photo asked though.
I'll do them all.
It'd be such an interest in the race too, weren't they? A bunch of 55-year-olds against a bunch of 10-year-olds.
I'll throw a question at you. What are you aiming at then?
Well, I've entered with last year's time of 5:36, so
right.
if I can beat that, that will be advance. I don't think what my personal worst is in a track mile. I think that's probably it. I think.
What age group are you in?
55.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I've done a 5:34.15, so I've got a few bad races before I get to my personal worst at 15. I think I was about 12 at the time and off no training, so yeah. We'll see how we go. Right, thanks, cheers.
Excellent. Yeah, have a good one.
So sorry, not too much chat tonight. I think I was got that mile race done. Yeah, I was quite pleased with that in the end. 5:28.4. They didn't have the automatic timing working, so I had to revert to the manuals, but that was way faster than I did last year with a 5:36. I tried to sort of go off a bit easily, but they were sort of a bit surprised by the pace, because I was expecting the race to be won about 5:30. I was half fancying my chances, and suddenly found myself sort of at the back of a pack, sort of going way faster. So I was actually quite sort of disciplined and didn't go off like an idiot, and that sort of paid off. I think my first lap was sort of around about an 80, then it drifted off to about an 84, then actually sort of sped up a bit, and then by then I was sort of on my own leading a group. I overtook one guy on the last lap, and then I had a really strong last lap, about 77 last lap, and then yeah, I think my 1500 split, I have to wait for the official one, but it must have been under 5:10. So yeah, sort of think I might have a chance of breaking sub 5 again for 15 if I get an opportunity to do so. So I think it's interesting that I train as sort of like a distance runner these days of 5 and 10k, and perhaps arguably still the sort of the mile 1500 is still my best event. So yeah, I mean, it's one way to run a mile race is actually to sort of actually run it as a even sort of effort, because I think when I raced it in the last summer, I was a bit sort of too keen trying to go off with the people, and then just sort of got to 400 and full of lactic, and then the last 3 hours was just terrible. So yeah, I was quite pleased with that. It's also nice to sort of feel that you come out with a race that you think you could do better, but you were just pleased with the result because you had a sort of a strong race and it was good, and yeah, you kind of think, oh, there's definitely room for improvement, but it wasn't a total shocker, and it was actually better than you thought you would do. So anyway, I hope you found this interesting, and like and subscribe on that, and see you next one then. Bye.